It's carried through Cheyenne art and tradition. So, Gordon.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to come home to Watonga. Grew up here, walked a lot of miles from 4 Acre Street to the junior high to the high school every day, you know. And I walk down to the post office and jump in the canal and go west, that little ditch.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that, you know, I'm very proud of is not only did I learn to share my talent in art, but I also appreciate what was already here. And you know, like I said, when I go with my mom to the post office, I go and look at the murals inside there. And that's what inspired me. It gave me a lot of inspiration to want to do art. And I said, someday I'm gonna be a mural artist. I'm gonna do that. And so here recently, 2 years ago, I completed my mural at the new El Reno Indian Clinic. And I was commissioned by the Indian Health Service to do that. And it took me 88 hours to do that mural. And so, you know, it's that kind of legacy I leave behind, but also I want to teach other artists technique, design concepts, color. You know, we have traditional colors in our Cheyenne tribe, the Arapaho tribe, and every color has a meaning, symbolism. There's a lot of symbolism into the art that we create, geometric symbolism, and that geometric design goes all the way down to our moccasins. That's why you see the triangles on our moccasins, the thunderbirds, the teepees, the circles. All of those colors are meaning to us as Cheyenne people, as well as Arapaho people. So when I incorporate my art, I always make sure I use those design concepts, meaning of each color. Why am I painting this red? You know, why am I painting this blue? And so that taught me a lot. And then my grandmother, just like Melvin and Larry's parents, my grandmother was a moccasin maker. She beat moccasins. And they sit there and I help her turn those moccasins. Can you imagine that? They would beat the moccasins and they would have to turn them inside out as they laced them together. And then the beadwork on them, they were symbols of our people, you know, and beautiful. And so for me, the artistic value of our teachings, our traditions, is alive. And it will always be alive as long as we have artists, moccasin makers, storytellers, and especially if we have places like this that can help preserve the history, help preserve some of these community events that we do. And partnership is key. You know, partnership is one thing that comes out of partnership is cooperation. You know, and you cooperate together, you can do a lot of things. And so going to that post office helped me instill pride in our community, but it also helped me in my legacy as an artist. And so now I'm proud to say, hey, I am a successful artist. And so when I went to Oklahoma City to the Red Earth Art Festival, I was, in 2010, I was chosen as the honored one. And what that means is 250 artists selected artists that deserved that honor. And so my name was chosen. And I got some compliments and I got some criticism from my older artists. And they said, Gordon, you're too young to receive that award. And I turned it around and I said, no. I said, I'm the youngest artist that ever received that award. So I encourage all young artists to achieve what I did. And so they said, oh, yeah, okay. So here with this Ferguson Museum, you know, it's a state entity. It's a state property that was, it still is in a museum. But representing the state of Oklahoma, I was chosen to, out of 5 artists in Oklahoma, I was chosen to be within that 5 to represent Oklahoma. And I was chosen, Laura Bush invited me to the White House. And she invited me. She said, "You're an artist from Oklahoma, and I want you to come." And so a little Cheyenne Rapo kid from Watauga, Oklahoma, going to the White House, that was an honor, representing Oklahoma. So you do that in your talent, but you do it in representation of who you are, your community, your state. And so being able to be an artist from Oklahoma and say, hey, I went to the White House because I'm an artist. So those are some of the accomplishments and achievements that I worked hard to accomplish. And we have many, many accomplished artists in Oklahoma, Blaine County, Watauga. You know, they're all nationally known. Harvey Pratt, Merlin Little Thunder, and myself. You know, they're all accomplished artists, but it all started in our community. And it started with our grandmothers, our grandfathers. And so the master artist that received that award as the honored one was Archie Blackout. And he's buried out here in this cemetery that we talked about this morning, Watauga Indian Cemetery. And he said, that's where I want to be buried. And I asked him, why you want to be buried in Watauga? He said, because that's where all the chiefs are.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm a chief. So I want to go lay to rest among the chiefs. And so that stuck with me. And so it was in 1981 when I first met Archie Blackout. And he approached me right down here when we had our Sundance ceremony, right by the 3 miles north of here, by Walking Woman Allotment. That was my grandmother's allotment. And he said, I want you to take me through the Cheyenne Sundance. And I asked him, why are you asking me? He said, because you're a young artist, you're a young man, and I want to help you. You can learn from me, and I'm going to teach you. And so I took him through the Sundance. I was very honored to do that. And inside there, he would teach me things, how he created his art in a sacred manner. And that felt very powerful to me. So he always, from that point on, after the ceremony, he always acknowledged me as his instructor. And that was an honor. Here he was, 30, 40 years older than me. And so the legacy of his art, he shared the technique and style with me, and then I incorporated my own style. I do ledger art, and I do contemporary ledger art. And what is ledger art? Ledger art is artists that drew the ledger style. They would collect ledger paper back in the 1800s. And a lot of the cavalry soldiers would write their garrison in these military notebooks. They were ledger books. And so as the Cheyennes captured these paper ledger books, they put their ledger drawings in there. They draw in there. And those drawings are actual historical accounts of what really happened. So in reality, it was a Polaroid snapshot of history. And so I started to study ledger art. I didn't know what I was wanting to be as an artist, but I had to create my own style. And so my wife said, if you want to become a ledger artist, then you better go see these ledger books. You better research them. So I went to Denver Museum of Art and Colorado Historical Society, and I looked at those ledger books from 1880 on that were created by Cheyenne Rapo artists. And I held the Dog Soldier ledger book in my lap at the Colorado Historical Society. And I looked at it and I said, now I know what they're talking about. And then I went to New York to study the fingernail ledger book. And in that ledger book, there's a bullet hole in that ledger book. And that was, he was shot at from a cavalry soldier. And the bullet hole is what saved his life, because he held the book. And so these are stories of my research into ledger art. Going to look at these ledger books is what helped me understand the value the history, and the richness of ledger art. So becoming a contemporary ledger artist, it's my style. And every artist has their own style. And if you notice in my ledger art, my horses do not have hooves. I will not put hooves on my horses. Why? Because that's my trademark. Every artist has a trademark. And once you design your paintings, people say, oh, that's a Gordon Yellowman piece. Well, how do you know that? Because he never puts hooves on his horses. Very simple. And that concept works for me. So in all the ledger art that are Cheyenne Arapaho, all of the action's going to go from right to left. From right to left. And you can tell they're right-handed artists. That's how you study art. And I said, oh, that one's a left-handed artist. Well, how do you know that? It's because that's the way we do our work. And so for me, going throughout these national museums, New York, Denver, and then down to Florida to see the Fort Marion ledger drawings, that's what inspired me to become a ledger artist. So some of my work is published. Here recently, I got 2 essays published at the St. Louis Art Museum. And that book just came out a month ago. And they mailed me my essays. And in that essay, I speak of Archie Blackhell's art. I talk about a relationship with Archie Blackhell. And he was born in Custer County. And he died in cowboy country. That's Stillwater. So I put that in my essay, and they said, what are you trying to say? And I said, well, look at this, Custer, and now a cowboy. So in other words, he made a path for us, and he was never defeated. And his art will always be recognized in his legacy. And that's what I want with my art, to be recognized in my own legacy of what I do and how I do it. And so, like I said, I got 2 commissions currently right now. It's a museum. It used to be the Museum of Man in San Diego, California. Currently working on that. And I got a commission from the University of, what's the name of that? It's a law school.
It's Oklahoma City University.
Yeah, Oklahoma City University. That's my latest commission. And I'm working on that. I just signed a contract. And oh man, I tell you, it's a good thing I'm married to a lawyer. Yeah. She's Cheyenne, you know? And so anytime I sign legal contracts, I say, here, read this. She'll say, oh, they need to change that. They need to take that out. And so it's good because you get into copyrights, you get into all of that. And so, you know, of course I don't tell them I'm married to a lawyer. But it's good. She supports my art as well as other people. So it's an honor to come over here and to be the first artist to do this show on a monthly basis. And I hope that other artists will come and share their work. So say thank you, and my artwork's in here. One of the, I did 3 book jacket designs. No, I did 4. And so you'll see my artwork on these book covers. And then I did the Sand Creek Massacre poster, which is real popular. And I only printed 1,000 copies of that poster, and I'm down to 50. So, you know, I brought some with me, and then you see the poster inside. And then I did the Fort Marion painting, and that was in 2001. I was commissioned to do that. So I've done a lot of artwork, and you know, I'm happy to say I'm very proud of my artwork, and I'm hoping that you guys can learn from my artwork, appreciate it, but also support other artists. It's my dream and my hope that we can have a residence, an artist residence here at the Casino Hotel. And what does that mean? I envision an artist staying in that motel during the tourism months for 30 days and produce art. and watch them sit there and paint their art. Give them a residency. And when you can do that through partnership and, you know, exposure for these artists, that's the way you help the artists. And so, you know, if that happens, then I want to be the first resident artist there. So think about that. So thank you, and I appreciate the honor, and I'm here. I'll be here till this evening because it gets dark at 5:30 and I kind of can't drive at night. Vision's kind of getting old, you know, I got gray hair. And I said, it's not gray, it's silver. Silver is wisdom. So thank you very much.